May 14, 2013, Eastern District of Arkansas, Federal Courtroom. 19 defendants shuffle in wearing chains. One by one, they plead guilty. Drug conspiracy, distribution, money laundering. But there's an empty chair at the defense table. The 20th defendant, the shot caller, the connect, the one they all answer to, she's a ghost. The FBI posts her face on wanted posters across the Southwest. $25,000 for information leading to her capture. That's real paper for a federal fugitive. But here's what makes this different. She's not hiding in some mountain compound. She's not buried in witness protection. Idalia Ramos Rangel is running a sports bar in Matamoros, Mexico, right across the bridge from Brownsville, Texas. Operating in plain sight, they call her La Tía, the Ant. In the game since the mid-'80s, when women in the cartel world were wives or widows, never bosses. She built an empire moving weight from Tamaulipas to Arkansas, distributing the heartland with that Colombian supply. Her organization pushed multiple hundreds of kilos. We're talking $10 million just in the Arkansas pipeline alone. The feds had surveillance, wiretaps, controlled buys. They had her sons, Mohammed and Homar, dead to rights. They had her daughter Nishmi on conspiracy charges. Operation Dirty Bird should have clipped her wings. But while her blood pleaded guilty in that Arkansas courtroom, La Tía was probably counting money in her Matamoros office, planning the next load. This isn't a story about getting caught. This is about a woman who rewrote the rules of the narco game, who ran a transcontinental drug empire for 4 decades, who turned federal prison into a recruitment center, who watched her own children take life sentences while she sipped tequila 2,000 miles away. This is the story of the most wanted woman you've never heard of, the matriarch of the Arkansas pipeline, the phantom who haunts the DEA, La Tía. Matamoros, Tamaulipas, where the Rio Grande kisses the Gulf of Mexico, border town, Cartel town, a place where sicarios drink beer next to federal police and everybody knows the rules. In the heart of the city, there's a sports bar, Cold Tecate, boxing on the screens, norteño music bleeding from the speakers. Behind the bar, a woman in her 60s moves with authority, blonde hair, fresh from the salon, designer clothes that cost more than most people make in a month. When she smiles, you can see the expensive dental work. When she doesn't, grown men look at their shoes. The locals know her as Señora Rangel, successful businesswoman. 3 kids who made it to America, generous with the church, helps families when they're short on rent. But in the federal databases, from Washington to Mexico City, she's got other names. La Tía, Big Mama, Target Number 1. Idalia Ramos Rangel. She's been moving products since Reagan was president. Think about that timing. Mid-'80s, when the Gulf Cartel was transitioning from marijuana to cocaine, when Juan Garcia Abrego was building the Matamoros-Brownsville corridor into a billion-dollar highway. She wasn't some plaza boss's wife who inherited the business. She built her own. The FBI intelligence files read like a narco novel nobody would believe. Multiple plastic surgeries, nose jobs, facelifts, the works, hair color changes like she's switching seasons. One day brunette, next month blonde. The kind of transformation that makes facial recognition software useless. But she's not hiding. She travels to Monterrey for shopping trips, Nuevo Leon's capital, 3 hours south, where the wealthy cartels wash their money through boutiques and restaurants. What separated La Tía from every other kingpin on federal radar? She understood something the flashy narcos never learned. You don't need gold-plated AK-47s. You don't need Instagram posts from Dubai. You need infrastructure, systems, family you can trust and fear that travels faster than gossip. Her business model was revolutionary for its simplicity. No street-level dealing, no corner boys getting popped with dime bags. She moved weight, serious weight, from the Tamaulipas corridors straight to distribution hubs. Little Rock, Arkansas became her American headquarters. Not Los Angeles, not Houston, Little Rock, a city where 100-kilo shipments could move without the heat that comes with traditional trafficking routes. The establishment served as perfect cover, cash business, constant flow of customers, international suppliers coming through for meetings about beer distribution. Mexican authorities weren't looking for female cartel leaders running legitimate businesses. They were hunting tattooed sicarios in bulletproof Suburbans. By the time the feds pieced together her network, La Tía had been operating for nearly 3 decades. 3 decades of staying under the radar while moving enough products to supply half the Midwest. Big Mama didn't just break the glass ceiling of the narco world, she built her own penthouse above it. Little Rock, Arkansas, April 2011. A state trooper pulls over a Chevy Tahoe for a routine traffic stop on Interstate 40. The driver's nervous, too nervous for a speeding ticket. The K9 unit hits on the vehicle, 30 kilograms of pure cocaine headed for Chicago. Street value over $1 million. The driver brakes, starts talking, says the magic words that make the DEA's phones light up. Gulf Cartel. This wasn't supposed to happen in Arkansas, the natural state, Clinton country, a place known for Walmart and Razorback football, not international drug conspiracies. But La Tía saw what the other cartels missed. Arkansas was perfect. Central location, interstate highways stretching like veins to every major city, Memphis to the east, Dallas to the southwest, St. Louis to the north, and nobody was watching. The supply chain began in Colombian processing labs, moved through Guatemalan transit points, then hit the dangerous territories of Tamaulipas. Each kilo stamped with cartel symbols, wrapped in industrial plastic, sealed with the kind of precision that comes from decades of practice. Matamoros safe houses became staging areas where loads got broken down, repackaged, assigned to different cells heading north. Then came the crossing, Brownsville, Texas, where Border Patrol agents make $30,000 a year and a single load can net $100,000 for looking the other way. The contraband crossed in 18-wheelers mixed with legitimate cargo, hidden in door panels of cars, driven by grandmothers with clean records, stuffed in duffel bags, carried by joggers, hitting the international bridge at dawn. Each method tested, refined, perfected over years of trial and error. From Brownsville, the product moved through a network of safe houses and transfer points, rural truck stops where drivers switched vehicles, storage units in small Texas towns where loads waited for the heat to die down. Motel rooms paid in cash where counters tested purity and weighed packages, every step choreographed, every player knowing only their piece of the larger operation. Federal Correctional Institution, Forest City, medium security, 90 miles east of Little Rock. This is where Mohammed Kazam Martinez, La Tía's eldest son, was doing time on an earlier charge. But prison walls don't stop business, they just change the rules. Mohammed turned his cell block into a recruitment center. Using the federal phone system, calls that were supposed to be monitored, he coordinated shipments, handled disputes, and most importantly, recruited fresh soldiers. Think about that hustle. You're locked up with men from every state, gangsters from Memphis, Detroit players, Chicago shot callers, each one with connections on the outside, each one looking at years before release. Muhammad offered them something better than commissary money. He offered them a plug, direct cartel connection, wholesale prices. All they had to do was give him their people on the outside. The FBI would later call it Operation Dirty Bird. Months of surveillance, controlled purchases where undercover agents bought full kilos like they were ordering pizza. Wiretaps that caught Muhammad directing loads from his prison phone. They documented over 100 kilograms moving through Arkansas alone, the kind of volume that fuels conflict, corrupts cities, destroys generations. Julio Cesar Cardenas ran the Texas side, moving loads from the border to Arkansas. Different cars, different routes, never the same pattern twice. $10 million generated just from this single corridor. One state, one tentacle of an octopus that reached from South American jungles to Midwest trap houses. November 1997, Brownsville, Texas. Federal agents kick down the door of a stash house near the International Bridge. Inside, they find $15,000 in cash, drug ledgers with distribution codes, scales dusted with narcotics residue, and La Tía trying to flush papers down the toilet. This should have been the end. Immigration violations, drug evidence, enough for a federal case that could have put her away for 20 years. But the system failed, or maybe La Tía played it perfect. She caught a deportation order instead of prison time. The feds labeled her a low-level criminal and sent her back to Matamoros. Biggest mistake they ever made. See, in the narco world, deportation ain't exile, it's a graduation ceremony. La Tía went from running street-level operations in Texas to connecting directly with Gulf Cartel leadership in Tamaulipas. No more crossing borders with product. She'd become management, the connect, the one who makes introductions and takes percentages without touching the work. But here's where she separated herself from every other player in the game. She built her empire on blood, not violence, family. Each kid had a role, each one trained from childhood to understand the business. Mohammed Kazam Martinez, the eldest, the enforcer who became the strategist. Even locked up in Forest City, he ran the communication network. Every call from his prison phone was a lesson in coded language. The cousin from Dallas needs 20 pairs of shoes. The weather's good for fishing this weekend. Translation, 20 kilos heading to Dallas. Shipment crosses this weekend. The feds recorded hundreds of these calls, each one directing traffic like he was running air control from his cell. Homar Martinez, the second son, the bridge between worlds, clean cut enough to rent properties for stash houses, street smart enough to handle the Arkansas crew when they got nervous. He was the one who'd meet buyers at Little Rock hotels, checking for wires while talking about football. The one who'd drive to Memphis to smooth over territory disputes before they turned into headlines. Nishmi Martinez, the daughter, the invisible one. Her name appears in indictments like a ghost, present but undefined. The feds knew she was involved but could never pin down her exact role. Some say she handled the money. Others say she was the one who recruited the women who'd walk loads across the bridge. Clean-looking mothers pushing strollers with false bottoms. Church ladies with kilos sewn into their girdles. This wasn't some crime family where everybody's trying to kill each other for the throne. This was incorporation. La Tía as CEO, her children as division heads, each one insulated from the others just enough that if one fell, the rest kept operating. The family model extended beyond blood. La Tía recruited other families, entire households working as cells, the parents moving weight, the kids watching for police, the cousins handling money. If you arrest one person, you don't just lose a dealer, you lose a whole network. And families don't snitch, not when mom's freedom depends on keeping your mouth shut. Not when your little brother's college fund comes from moving product. By 2013, the family had operations in at least 3 states. They had distributors in Chicago, Memphis, Dallas, Houston. They had suppliers throughout Mexico. They had lawyers on retainer and cops on payroll. What started with a deportation had become a multinational corporation, but even family has a breaking point. When the indictments dropped, when Operation Dirty Bird went public, La Tía had a choice: stand with her blood or let them take the fall. She chose option 3, vanish while visible. Look at any narco documentary. Every kingpin follows the same script. gold-plated pistols, pet tigers, Instagram models on yachts. They build mansions that can be seen from space. They throw parties that make the news. They want the world to know they made it. That flash is what gets them killed or caged. La Tía understood something these men never did. The real power moves in silence. 4 decades in the game started when Miami Vice was on TV teaching America what narcotics cowboys looked like. While Tony Montana wannabes were getting taken out in broad daylight, she was setting up legitimate businesses, currency exchanges, import-export companies with real paperwork and fake manifests, the kind of operations that wash money so clean, forensic accountants get headaches trying to trace it. The physical transformations weren't vanity, they were camouflage. Every surgical procedure created a new identity. The FBI has pictures from 1997, dark hair, indigenous features, the face of someone who'd blend into any border town market. By 2013, witnesses describe a blonde woman with European features, refined cheekbones, the look of a telenovela producer, not a cartel boss. She switched appearances like dealers change burner phones, not to hide, but to operate at different levels. The blonde socialite having lunch with Monterey businessmen, the brunette grandmother visiting family in Texas, the redhead meeting Colombian suppliers in Cancun. Same woman, different masks, each one opening different doors. Violence was bad for business. Everybody drops heat. Every shooting brings task forces. While other cartels turned Mexican highways into graveyards, La Tía's network operated through handshakes and wire transfers. Sure, people who crossed her disappeared, but quietly, no messages, no viral videos, just gone like smoke and wind. Her communication system predated encrypted apps by decades. No cell phones that could be tracked, no emails that could be subpoenaed. Everything went through intermediaries, lawyers visiting clients, priests carrying confessions, business partners discussing legitimate deals that included coded instructions for drug shipments. The FBI spent years trying to get one recorded conversation with her voice. They never did. The prison pipeline that Muhammad ran, that wasn't desperation. That was innovation. Who's gonna suspect inmates of running international drug conspiracies? They're locked up, monitored, counted every 4 hours. But La Tía saw what others missed. Prisoners got released every day. They had contacts nationwide. They were hungry for opportunity. And most importantly, they were already in the system. Their criminality was assumed, which made them invisible. She recruited inmates 6 months from release, gave them startup capital, connected them with suppliers. By the time they hit the streets, they had everything needed to move weight except the product, which her network provided at wholesale prices. It was franchise crime, McDonald's for cocaine distribution. Even her geographic positioning was strategic. Matamoros wasn't just home, it was a fortress. Mexican authorities wouldn't touch her without federal pressure. Local cops were either paid or scared. The Gulf Cartel provided protection in exchange for percentages, and being minutes from the U.S. border meant she could monitor her American operations without ever setting foot on U.S. soil. The quiet storm strategy worked for 40 years, until May 2013, when the FBI decided that vacant defendants' seat couldn't remain unfilled forever. They were coming for the Queen. May 2nd, 2013, 4:30 in the morning, simultaneous raids across 3 states. FBI SWAT teams hit doors from Little Rock to Memphis to Dallas. Operation Dirty Bird was going loud. 18 months of surveillance, hundreds of hours of wiretaps, controlled purchases of enough narcotics to put everyone away for life. This was supposed to be the kill shot. U.S. Attorney Christopher Thayer called it one of the largest drug conspiracies ever prosecuted in Arkansas. FBI Special Agent Randall Coleman stood at the podium talking about dismantling entire networks. The news cameras rolled. The perp walks made the evening broadcast. 16 defendants in custody, but the shot caller, the connect, the one they really wanted. She remained untouchable in Mexico. See, La Tía had something the feds didn't count on: perfect intelligence. Someone inside tipped her, maybe a corrupted agent, maybe a lawyer who saw the sealed indictments early, maybe just street intuition from 40 years in the game. By the time those doors got kicked, she was already adjusting operations from her Matamoros compound. Mohammed and Homar didn't run. They couldn't. Too much heat, too many eyes. July 2014, they stood before a federal judge and pled guilty. Conspiracy to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine. Mandatory minimum of 10 years, maximum of life. The judge called them managers of a massive criminal enterprise, but managers ain't owners. And the owner was 1,200 miles south, probably reviewing ledgers in her back office. The reward posters went up immediately. Her photo plastered from Brownsville to Laredo. Every border crossing had her picture. DEA liaisons knocked on doors in Tamaulipas. Intelligence flowed to Mexican federal police. Everyone knew her location. Nobody could touch her. Here's the mathematics of catching someone like La Tía. Mexican authorities need federal pressure to move on someone that connected. Federal pressure needs diplomatic channels. Diplomatic channels need political will. Political will needs public attention. And a 60-something businesswoman doesn't generate the headlines of El Chapo or El Mayo. She's not massacring students. She's not hanging bodies from bridges. She operates through lawyers and accountants, not sicarios and executioners. The superseding indictment added 4 more names, 20 defendants total. They flipped informants who gave up routes, methods, connections. They traced money to accounts in Panama and the Caymans. They documented her travel patterns: Monterey for shopping, Cancun for meetings, always returning to Matamoros. They knew her habits, her haunts, her whole operation. Didn't matter. International borders are walls that warrants can't climb. Meanwhile, her network adapted like a virus, mutating around antibiotics. New routes through Arizona and California. Different suppliers from Guatemala and Honduras. Fresh distributors recruited from different prisons. The Arkansas pipeline might have been compromised, but the machine kept running. You can't kill an enterprise by arresting middle management. You need the architect, and the architect was protected by geography, corruption, and 4 decades of carefully cultivated power. Years passed. The agents who worked Operation Dirty Bird have retired or moved to other cases. The prosecutors have become judges. The informants have disappeared into witness protection or shallow graves. New names filled the wanted posters. Fresh conspiracies demanded attention. But La Tía, intelligence reports from 2023 suggested she was still operational, still untouchable, still counting money while her sons counted days in federal prison. A dozen years have passed since that empty courtroom chair made headlines. Federal agents have spent more than a decade chasing shadows in Matamoros. Her sons mark time in federal cells while their mother remains free, 2,000 miles and a lifetime away. Behind the statistics and indictments lie the real casualties, communities poisoned by the products she moved for 40 years. Let's be clear about what 4 decades of drug trafficking means. It's not just moving product. It's flooding neighborhoods with addiction. Every kilo that crossed through Brownsville ended up destroying lives. The Arkansas pipeline alone moved enough cocaine to supply every addict in Little Rock for years. Behind those numbers are overdose victims, shattered families, children orphaned by their parents' struggles with substance abuse, emergency rooms overwhelmed, treatment centers at capacity, entire generations lost to the white powder she helped distribute. Current FBI intelligence still places her in Matamoros, now in her 70s, but reportedly still operational. Her establishment remains a fixture in the city. Money continues flowing through the same currency exchanges. Mexican authorities treat her like she's untouchable because functionally she is, too connected to arrest, too careful to catch slipping, too old for anyone to care about making headlines. Think about this. She's outlasted 3 Mexican presidents, 4 U.S. administrations. Hundreds of FBI agents have rotated through her case. The DEA has spent millions tracking her network. Interpol has her file marked priority. Yet there she sits, probably watching this story on the news, knowing they can't touch her. Her survival comes down to systematic failure at every level. The Gulf Cartel protects her because she's valuable. Decades of connections, routes, and institutional knowledge that can't be replaced. Local police won't move without federal backing. Federal forces won't move without absolute certainty. And certainty is hard when your target has been dodging law enforcement since before some of the agents were born. The corruption runs deeper than money. It's about survival. Every cop in Matamoros knows the rules. You don't touch certain people. You don't ask certain questions. You don't investigate certain businesses. The price of curiosity is a widow's pension and a closed casket funeral. But there's another truth here. La Tía represents a system that can't be fixed with handcuffs. You arrest her tomorrow, someone else inherits her routes. You seize her assets, the money's already been replaced. You shut down her pipeline, 3 more open using the same blueprint she perfected. She's not just a criminal, she's proof that the war on drugs is a war without end. Her legacy isn't something to admire. It's a case study in how broken systems create untouchable criminals, how borders become shields, how family businesses can include wholesale cocaine distribution, how a woman deported as a low-level criminal in 1997 could build an empire that survived its own destruction. Mohammed and Homar are eligible for release in the 2030s, assuming good behavior. They'll be old men by then. Their mother will likely be dead if she isn't already. The legitimate businesses will have new owners. The trafficking routes will have new management. But the system that created La Tía, the poverty, the proximity to drug routes, the corruption that makes crime more profitable than legitimacy, that system keeps producing new versions of her every day. The federal reward still stands, $25,000 gathering dust. Her file remains active in FBI databases. Agents in El Paso and Houston keep her photo nearby, hoping for that one tip, that one mistake. But everyone knows the truth. Some people don't get caught. They just fade away, leaving behind poisoned communities and questions about justice. La Tía won, not because she's brilliant or ruthless or untouchable. She won because the system let her. And somewhere in Matamoros, whether in a cemetery or behind a bar, the phantom of the courtroom is proof that sometimes the bad guys don't get what they deserve. They simply vanish into history, leaving only damage in their wake.